Hey guys. Okay, so just a bit of a heads up. I've just pulled up out the front of my next site meeting. Side comment, state heritage listed building that was designed by the same architect that did Home, aka Lamb House at Kangaroo Point. Like, I'm so excited to go inside this thing. I've just pulled up and it's got these grand light posts, real cool gate, some massive, I mean massive trees on the property. Like, oh, I've got high hopes for this one. Anyway, the reason why I'm telling you this is the heritage expert, he was like, yo, and I am paraphrasing here, he was like, yo, I'll be there roughly 10:45. So I thought, okay, I'll turn up at 10:30, gives me a chance to slip in this week's video. But I know Andrew, I've worked with Andrew for quite a while now, and there is a very high chance that he's going to turn up early. So what I'll do is I record this video, I'll just try and keep an eye out the corner of my eye on, is that what I'm trying to say? Keep an eye out the corner of my eye. Yeah, I said that right. On the gate, just to make sure he doesn't turn up early. If he does, I'll hit pause on this video and we'll just continue when I get out. Let's hope I can get it all done before he does turn up though. So this week, what I want to talk about is the difference between code assessable and impact assessable, because I've surprisingly had a lot of questions about this recently. Most of the time it's from people freaking out thinking they're going to trigger impact assessment. So yeah, what's the difference? First thing you need to know is they are both terms that describe the category of assessment or development, kind of like AKA the type of application you're going to trigger. Now, I personally think there's five different key differences here. So first and foremost, it's the type of applications they cover slash council's position on, or position on is the best way to say it, or approach they'll take. No, position on, let's go with that. Position on the type of application. So code assessable applications are ones that align with council's general intent. They're things that council expects to see in the area. So a house in a housey area, it's gonna be code assessable because council actually expects to see that sort of thing there. When it comes to impact assessable, that's kind of the out of the box, that, oh, we didn't quite expect to see that sort of thing here. We need to phone a friend type things. So it's things where council's gone, oh, we want to put it out to public consultation just so we can get a bit of public feedback to work out, is there anything we're missing, anything extra we need to be considering, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, code assessable covers the more simple, everyday type stuff. Impact assessable covers the stuff that, generally speaking, council's going to have a little bit more of a hesitation about, a bit more interest in, all of that sort of stuff. Now, next is the advertising costs. So when it comes to impact assessable, you trigger advertising, aka public notification, which is sign on the front of the property, registered letters to the neighbours, and a advertisement in the local paper. Advertisement in the local paper feels very outdated these days. Like, no one reads the paper, but it is what it is. So yeah, you've got the cost of that. Now, just off the top of my head, typically speaking, if you've only got one road frontage, need coffee this morning. If you've only got one road frontage, then you're only going to be up for one sign. You're probably looking at maybe $1,000 if you engage a private company to be able to do that, which I would recommend you do, because there are some very specific rules about font sizes, font styles, all of that sort of stuff. If you screw that up, someone can challenge the validity of the public notification process and potentially send you right back to the beginning, or even worse, deem your approval that you get as being invalid and send you back to the start. Ain't nobody got time for that. So yeah, me personally, I always say, use a private company that specializes in this stuff, does it day in, day out, because they're going to know the ins and outs of the font sizes, the formatting, all of that sort of stuff to reduce your risk of any screw-ups. At the end of the day, everyone's human, people make mistakes, but you significantly reduce it, or the chance of issues, if you're using someone who lives and breathes this stuff every single day. So yeah, when you're impact assessable, the difference is that you have to pay for the advertising, which, like I said, starts at about $1,000. Next, you've got the appeal rights. So during the public notification process, anyone can lodge a submission. The reality is anyone can lodge a submission at any point during an application, but if they do it against an impact assessable application, and if it's a properly made application or properly made submission, so by that I mean lodged within the relevant time frame, signed in written format, blah, 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 there's all these criteria. But if it meets all those criteria, it's classed as a valid submission, a properly made submission, and they have appeal rights, which means at the end of the process, if council approves the application, they have the right to appeal. The reality is very few people appeal because it costs money. It's a real imposition, all of that sort of stuff. But technically speaking, you do have appeal rights. Now, number 4 is timeframes. So if you're going through that advertising process for impact assessable, it takes time. It takes 15 business days, aka 3 weeks. But then you've also got to allow for the time for council to process the submissions, to respond to the submissions, because they've got to keep this paper trail in case issues come up down the track and people accuse them of not considering the submissions, etc., etc. So they have to go through and put this, and side comment, I used to hate that task when I worked in council. It was so time consuming, painful. So often you'd get comments that you just like, oh, like I remember one of the ones that stuck with me when I worked in the West team was someone complained about a subdivision that was occurring. These people were from Dubai here on holidays, and the reason why they complained about the submission is because they didn't like dogs and they thought the future owners could have dogs, and that wasn't a good outcome. I was like, yeah, okay, where do I start with this one? So yeah, responding to submissions isn't exactly the highlight of an assessment manager's day, because a lot of the time you're just like, are you for real? Like, where do I even start in responding to this? I just want to be like, no, computer says no. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. When it comes to the advertising, yes, there's the time with that, submission response time with that, but also when it comes to the legislation, you have deemed approvals for code assessable. So if council doesn't act within a certain time frame, you can threaten a deemed approval. No one ever does that. I've talked about that in a previous video, but technically that appeal or that option is there. Whereas impact assessment, it's the opposite. You've got deemed refusal. And why would you want to go deemed refusal especially if you're on the approval path? So yeah, basically, long story short is when it comes to impact assessable applications, they take longer. And then last but not least is the scope of assessment. Now, I was reluctant to include this in my list, but I like 5, so I want to round the number out. But I sat there and just went, technically it is true. When it comes to code assessable applications, council is limited in terms of the criteria within the planning scheme they can consider. When it comes to impact assessable applications, they can consider the entire planning scheme. The reality is they're not going to. They're always like impact assessable. You're still going to stick to the codes. I can't think of ever lodging a job where council's gone beyond the standard codes. But if you were doing something really out of the box, then technically speaking, council could extend the scope of their assessment and look at more stuff. So it complicates things. So just to recap, code assessable, impact assessable, they're both terms that are used to describe the level or category of assessment. When it comes to code assessment, it is, what was the first point I made? Shows you what type of applications, total mental blank, really need that coffee. What type of applications council covers and their position on those applications. So code assessable is for the generally anticipated stuff. Impact assessable is for the stuff where council wants to phone a friend because it's not what they generally envisage in an area. Then you've got the costs. Impact assessment comes with advertising costs. You've got the timeframes. Impact assessment comes with advertising timeframes, plus submission response timeframes, plus just we don't have the same pressure as the code assessable application timeframes. Then, no, I missed something. Appeal rights was my number 3 point. So impact assessment comes with appeal rights. And then lucky last is the scope of assessment. So I just saw someone moving. It's a gardener. Don't panic. I'm going to get through this video. The 2 more things I wanted to talk about. The final thing was there is technically another category of assessment / development, which is accepted development. Accepted development, we don't lodge applications for. It's commonly referred to as like exempt stuff. So that applies for stuff where council, you're just doing something that's totally envisaged for the area. There's no need for council to see it because it's not going to ruffle any feathers or cause any problems. So I guess I'd say exempt, aka accepted development, is a house, a 2-story house in a middle ring suburb like Stafford. Of course, you're going to see that there. Let's say a large lot. Let's clarify that further. So middle ring, no problematic overlays, no problematic neighbourhood plans, large lot, all of that sort of stuff. If you're doing a house that's 2 stories, council doesn't need to see that stuff. Like you're ticking every box for what they envisage in the area. So that's going to be accepted development. Code assessment is there for the things where council's like, there could be some stuff here. Like you could peeve the neighbours off, or you could peeve the community off, aka if you're doing an extension to a character house. I'm going to push on today's video, I'm going to make it happen. A extension to a character house in a character area, council's like, well, we expect extensions, but your idea of lightweight might be different to our idea of lightweight. So we kind of just want to make sure we're on the same page here. So just lodge a code assessable application. And your impact assessable is, whoa, we did not necessarily expect this to come in. We need to have a chitty chat to the community and work out whether this is appropriate type thing. The final thing I wanted to say was code notifiable. So there's a lot of people that are like, oh, but housey applications trigger advertising. And I'm like, are you back in 2000? Like the times have changed, guys. I just threw my pen down. So yeah, times have changed. So back under City Plan 2000, you had 4, an extra category of assessment, and that was called code notifiable. It was like a baby version of advertising. So it had 10 business days of advertising, no requirement for the newspaper advertisement, and no appeal rights. And that applied anytime you did partial demolition work on a character house, like a TBC overlay house, triggered so often, or often when you're doing units and all of that sort of stuff, you always triggered. When City Plan 2014 came in, council went, why are we giving the community the opportunity to have a say and to feel like they can control or change an outcome on something that ticks all of the boxes in the planning scheme? Like if someone's doing a demolition but it's not removing integral components, or if they're doing a units or subdivision that's ticking the boxes, why are we building people's hopes up and drawing in all the extra emotion and angst and all of that sort of stuff by letting people comment? Let's just get rid of that code notifiable category and let's push a heap of applications down from impact assessable to code assessable. So yeah, the perception of, or the fear of, oh, we're going to be impact accessible, or there's going to be advertising, stems from City Plan 2000, where a lot more stuff triggered advertising. But as I said, council got to the point where they're like, why are we just sending people on this emotional roller coaster without any? So people were sitting there basically saying, we object, here's the reasons. And council's like, that's nice, planning scheme supports it, we kind of can't say no, sorry. And so, yeah, it was just leading to this weird messiness. Council was just wasting time responding to objectors and complaints because people, rightly so, felt they had the ability to comment. It was just messy. So yeah, they got rid of all of that, which was awesome. Anyway, I think I've rambled enough today. I've managed to get the video done before Andrew turned up. Yes, winning. As I always like to say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane Town Planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.